So we're about halfway through the NBA regular season now, and we have a decent enough sample size to tell us, like, hey, this is what this guy's been good at this year, this is what he hasn't been so good at, so we can kind of start to make some inferences about players. So I figured in this video we could take a look at 5 players that haven't quite reached my expectations for where I thought they would be this year, and take that for as you will. This is not hating on any of these players. I still like these players. It doesn't mean they can't get better or anything. Just my prediction for where I thought they would be this year hasn't really come true, and I thought we could look at why. So the first player we're going to take a look at is Kellin Johnson from the Spurs. Kellin Johnson came out of Kentucky about 5 years ago now already. That's crazy. And as you can see, each year getting better and better and better. Got up to 22 a game last year, and he's kind of regressed a bit this year. Now, I already know what you're saying, right? Wembanyama's on the team now. He's taking a lot of shots and stuff, and so that's going to cause his numbers to go down. And you're correct, but I also kind of envisioned that he would be like the second leading scorer still, and that hasn't necessarily been the case. And so I figured we could talk about Keldon a little bit and be like, hey, what's kind of happened? Because we don't even really see him in the starting lineup very often anymore. As you can see in his last 5 games, right? I mean, it's kind of all over the place, right? You not a starter. You sometimes have these great games, this 21-16 game. Then you get 14-point games. The 3-point shot still hasn't really taken off. Like, I just kind of expected a bigger jump, especially with like Wembanyama being on the team. I kind of figured, hey, maybe the 3-point shot finally starts to click this year. Maybe he gets to play a true position because he's kind of bounced all over. He was like a 2 when he came in. He was a 4 at points, and now he's like a 3, and he's only like, what is he, 6'5", right? Yeah, 6'5", 220, so he's got a good build and everything, but he hasn't quite found what he's doing in the league yet. And one thing I did want to point out, his playmaking has been better. Turnovers are down, assists are up. They can always go up. The Spurs haven't had a great system for most of this year, so I can kind of forgive some of that. But it's at least good to see that. But it's sad to see the shooting go down so much. And some of the things I like about Kellin Johnson is he attacks the rim like ferociously, but he kind of gets that tunnel vision sometimes, and that's a little bit concerning that he hasn't learned to grow a little bit, especially when he's got like other decent young players playing around him now. We can take a look at his on-off numbers here. So currently the Spurs are a little bit better without him on the court. Like, there's nothing all that crazy that like stands out as far as his stats and everything. But you look at it and the team's currently better without him. So they're not good regardless, but they are better without him. And that's not saying that he's not a good player and stuff and that the Spurs don't need to keep him around. But like, you kind of figured that Kellin Johnson was going to maybe be like a Rudy Gay type of player where he can go get a lot of points. Maybe he's not a great playmaker or anything. Rudy Gay was not a good playmaker at all, but he could go get some buckets, right? And so you thought maybe he's like a shorter Rudy Gay, something like that. But now you know that the scoring's going down and the efficiency in the scoring hasn't quite gone up. You're starting to be like, hey, is it just him trying to learn how to play with all these dudes? Do we need to get a shooting point guard around him to help him even more? What's kind of going on here? How do we unlock Kellin Johnson? I pulled up his shooting chart as well. If you guys don't ever look at this stuff, I think this stuff's really interesting. So his shooting chart, like, the locations are great, right? Like, this is what a modern shooting chart should look like. He's getting shots from the wings and everything, and he's attacking the rim like crazy, but he's not really converting a ton of them. Not shooting well from his strong corner or the top of the key. He's red hot from mid-range in the few he takes, so good for him there. I'm not suggesting that he should take any more of those, but we love the aggression going towards the rim because we find that leads to a lot of success. You get to the free throw line, right? But we also see that he isn't even really like completely league average, and that's kind of maybe a bad comparison. The reason that's not always a great comparison is because there's bigs down there or something that inflate the number. So it's not like he's shooting poorly around the rim by any means, but you know, how do we continue to make him more effective? Where do we take that next step with Kellin Johnson where maybe he's going towards the rim, right? And maybe he's working in the pick and roll with Wembanyama. Wembanyama's looking killer in the pick and roll right now. It's like whether he's the ball handler or not. So maybe this is something you can run with a Kellin Johnson because it's working fine with Tre Jones. And like Tre Jones isn't a shooter by any means. So maybe this is something where we can get Kellin Johnson the ball a little more and they could be playing off each other. It gives him a chance to improve his ball handling and stuff. Maybe he becomes more of a playmaker or something. Maybe he's more of a glue guy. But but history shows us that, he's kind of a scorer, right? So it's how do we start to fit that in for Kellin Johnson more? Because I feel like this has been a little bit of a step back this year, and I'd like to see that growth continue to go. And we'll give him some time, right? He's a young guy still. Takes a while. He's got a new fun piece in Wembanyama he's playing with where they're trying to figure that out at all times. But yeah, I'm just a little bummed. I kind of figured we'd see some jumps in some of those areas this year. All right, y'all, the next player we're looking at is Christian Wood. Christian Wood is the guy that I've been very big on for a long time. Back to when he was a part of like the Pistons organization, I believe, and he was in the G League. I was working for some people in the league at the time doing some work for him, and I kept telling him, like, there's this dude, Christian Wood, man, like, got to get a call up and everything. Like he's a bucket. I don't know how he is as a person or anything like that, but he's got to get a call up. And, they had told me some things that like, yeah, we've kind of seen him a little bit before, like not quite sure he's got the personality to be up in the league and everything, but yeah, there's some talent there. Eventually got the call up. And as you guys see, those numbers just went crazy for a little bit, given not so great teams, got a lot of shot attempts and everything like that. But still, you saw good efficiency here. I mean, look at this, 37% three-point shooter, 39, 37 again. This year on the Lakers, he came there on a minimum deal to kind of be like, all right, let me prove myself a little bit. Let me come in on this championship contender team, which doesn't necessarily look like it right now, but that's another video, I guess. And he's like, and then I'll go earn myself a bigger contract again. And that just has not happened at all. Like one start this year, we kind of maybe figured that he wouldn't be a starter on this team, but like 18 minutes a game, my man can't get 20 plus minutes when he's in the last couple seasons scored 21, 18, 17 on good efficiency. How much of this is to blame on the Lakers? Hard to say. Like they're not really getting true good backup big minutes, so I don't understand why they can't make this work. Christian Wood's never been a great defensive player. That's been said, and I always give people a hard time for that, honestly. When you're that big and that athletic like he is, like that's just getting reps in, watching film, and effort. Like that's what that is to be at least a competent defender, and that just hasn't really proven to be true with Christian Wood, so you give him some slack there, but you should still be able to crack a little more of the rotation than he is. I mean, you look at these last couple games, right? Get off my screen, ads. Like, you look at it here, -9, -14, -4, -5. Right? There's a nice +20 there. Congrats. Minus, right? It's just not looking good. The shooting splits aren't very good, and that's always something to think about when you're not getting a ton of burn right away. It's hard to find those like kind of shooting runs that you could go on. But the rebounding's not bad. Like when I look at it here, at least in like the more recent stretch, so that's kind of interesting to look at. Yeah, that is kind of interesting. But like you're not really getting anything bucket wise out of this dude. Honestly, for his minutes, it's not bad. And so are we saying that like maybe he just needs to play more minutes or something? Maybe he needs to be in the game for longer streaks or something like that. Like let's look at his on-off numbers. Off the court, they're a -2.1. On the court, he's a +0.2. Maybe, and see, I'm evolving my thoughts a little bit like as we go. Maybe we need to put him in longer stints on the court or something like that, right? Like, let this guy get going a little bit. I mean, there's certainly been points this year where the Lakers have struggled to put up some points or something like that. And so I don't know if you can find a way to play him and AD together. We can take a look at that, actually. How much do they play together? So the lineup he's played with the most, he actually has played with Anthony Davis, and that's a -26. So that has not worked whatsoever, and that's a pretty defensive lineup that you have in for the most part between Prince, Reeves, like D'Lo's what he is, but at least that's like a big lineup. After that, he plays the center. It gets a little bit better. The best lineup that he plays, and well, at least one that's played like a decent amount of minutes together, is him, Vanderbilt, Hachimura, James, and Russell. So kind of more of a big lineup. That's kind of interesting. Is that because Vando is kind of guarding the center in that case then? That could be. But yeah, like what case do we make for this here? Like where did it go, right? Because the talent's still there. Where did it go? How do we unlock this again? Taking a look at his shooting charts here, he's been pretty cold from out there, except for one of the corners. He's actually pretty good around the rim, and that's probably because he's catching a lot of lobs or something like that from a driving LeBron. D'Angelo Russell is phenomenal in the pick and roll, right? Austin Reeves is phenomenal in the pick and roll. He's playing with those guys pretty frequently. So, you know what? He's going to get a lot of easy attempts at the rim. That makes a ton of sense. How do we unlock the three-point shooter in him again? That's another question. Because right now he's falling below league average in all areas except like in the restricted area, meaning right under the hoop. So it's a disappointment for Christian Wood, right? Because I mean, like I said, he came here to get a contract, and it just hasn't quite worked out yet. So hopefully you can unlock him. There's still half a season left. Hell, throw him on the court, man. Like there is lineup data suggesting in a very small sample that you can put him and Davis together and it works. So what that means, I don't completely know, but you got a guy that's got that capability of scoring. You better find a way to put him on the court. And this should also be a challenge to him as well, right? Like, how do you make it so that you have to be on the court, right? Like, there's something you can do to prove to this team that you can be on there. The roster isn't that deep. Like, there are things you can be doing as well to get on this court. Alrighty, so no surprise, we're looking at Jordan Poole now. I made the bold prediction, as did a couple other people this year, that Jordan Poole would lead the NBA in scoring this year. I figured we've seen Jordan Poole be a shot chucker. He's been able to make shots in high volume before. We figure he goes on a team where they've got nobody else that's putting up points, which still is pretty much true aside from Kuzma. Like, all right, he's going to get his 30 ball, right? Like, it's his team. He can do whatever he wants. Not been the case at all. Somehow, this dude has gone down in scoring since being on this team. I didn't think that was possible at all. Like, you look at the minutes are about the same too. Like he's playing a little bit less now, probably because they were getting blown out or something like that. They take him out and stuff like that. So that's probably a little bit skewed stat because they haven't been very good. But like, look at this. The efficiency has fallen off a cliff. 2-point percentage shots shooting below 50%. His effective field goal percentage is below 50. The free throw percentage has stayed consistent. That's good. 3-point has just fallen completely off. And man, like he wasn't like a knockdown shooter to begin with, but like he had streaks, right? He's above average. He's considered a solid shooter. Now he's just not there. And like purely the 16 to 17 points a game is just off of volume alone. So the Wizards have just kind of been a mess this whole season. Obviously, Wes Unseld recently stepped out and everything, and now they're in this situation where they're like, okay, who can we trade to try and salvage any part of the season and try to get some assets because we don't have a ton of draft assets. Let's just get rid of Kyle Kuzma. There's no point in him being here. And we've also seen just the darker side of it where it just doesn't seem like the team is like even really trying out there. You've heard me say before, I'm like, the Pistons like at least look like they're trying, and I think they're a better roster. There's just, I think, weird lineup things going on with the Pistons, but I'm like, the Wizards are the least talented team in the NBA. That's just has to be a fact. And they're not even like trying either. Like, I legit can't watch them play basketball unless it's like Koulibaly, which, very interesting note, they've been starting to let Koulibaly kind of initiate some offense a little bit more in some of their like clear out sets when they go into this kind of like clear out pick and roll, and then they've got like the 2 out 1 in type thing going on there. Very interesting, right? But that's a whole nother thing. Jordan Poole, not been very effective and everything. Assists are down, like turnovers are down too, but it just doesn't seem like they're letting him handle the ball maybe quite as much. There's just been so many goofy moments this year. I don't know. Let's take a look at his more recent games. Like, you see a 13-point game, a 17-point game, 18. We're not crossing 20 very often. We had a little bit of a streak maybe like a couple weeks ago or something, and then just kind of fell off again. Like, look at how hot and cold it's been. Like, we're getting like below 15 points, and then we're going up to 30 points again or something for like random times, and then below 15 again. Like, that's just horrible inconsistency out of a player like that. And it's a shame because he's a talented player, right? Like, he's got nice shooting form, he's got some confidence, which helps. He's got a good handle on the ball. Like, there's things to like about Jordan Poole. Like, I do like his game in a lot of sense. You have to wonder, how serious is he taking this stuff? And I don't like to question that in NBA players, like, and I'm not completely. I'm saying I'm wondering about it, right? Like, that's something I look to because I'm like, he's pretty talented. I know the roster around him isn't that talented, but like, there's still capable players on the court, and we can't figure it out. I don't know. Something's going on here. We take a look at the lineup numbers too. I mean, it's not good anywhere because it's the Wizards, right? But like, man, like which one's the best? The lineup that he's with the most is just the starting lineup, and that's kind of the best it gets, which is probably fair. But like, man, some of these are just like awful. Like, what's going on here? Oh, this is since they've thrown Marvin Bagley in instead of Gafford. So maybe that's something right there that tells you that Gafford's a much better defensive player than Bagley. And yeah, this isn't a very good defensive team by any means, and Jordan Poole certainly doesn't help that. So, you know, it's hard to get going offensively if you're a guy like Jordan Poole. You probably like to play in transition and stuff like that. And when you can't get out and run in transition because you're not getting stops ever, that can be a tough thing. And maybe that's why it's been a little bit rougher even more recently. This is where it gets real interesting, though. On the court with Jordan Poole, minus 13. Off the court, minus 3. That's telling right there. That's telling when he's on the court, he's doing his thing, right? Like, that's a big difference. That's a statistical difference right there. There's a term for that in statistics. I can't remember what it's called, but that's a difference right there. That says something. Something's got to change with his game. You would actually think that like the team would be a little more effective with him in like a ball handling position or something like that. You started to see that at the end of the Golden State times, them trying to develop him as more of not like an off-ball player, but an on-ball player. You would think when you had like a run, jump, and dunk big like Gafford or something like that, which they don't really use him as very much, but you would think that'd be something they'd go to a little more to try and get him some easy playmaking opportunities or something like that. Maybe you need to play him with Corey Kispert a little bit more to try and space the floor a little bit, but like we're missing some opportunities here. If we want to look at trends as well, I'm pulling up one more thing. This is the 2022 to 2023 numbers with Golden State. With him off the court last year, they were a plus 6.2, and with him on the court, minus 0.8. So maybe this is more of a trend than we realized. Maybe he's not as contributing to winning as maybe we might have thought. Final thing with Jordan Poole, just taking a look at his shooting chart, this isn't what you want to see. There is just everything everywhere, right? There's no consistency to anything. He really likes that right elbow, I guess, which is not a shot you want people taking nowadays. It's just not a very effective shot, and he's not really that crazy from anywhere but there. So it's like, man, one, this tells you there's not much rhyme or reason going on when he's in. He doesn't really care where he's shooting from. He's just in there to pull, and he's not hitting it all from 3. So that sucks. He's solid around the rim, which is nice. That's good that he can get there and finish and everything. But like, man, the shooting chart just says you're all over the place, man. We got to reel this in. We got to get some consistency. Like, how are you going to find consistency in your play if you're not taking consistent shots? Like, that's just something that I feel, unless you're like a Kevin Durant or damn near Larry Bird or something like that, where you just literally do just practice everything all the time, everything, right? Like, let's take Jordan Poole. Let's find him 2 or 3 shots. Like, we're almost building him up again as he was a rookie or something like that, and be like, these are your 2-3 shots. Go from here. All right, y'all, next player we're looking at is Jaylen Green, and I already know you guys have heard me talk about Jaylen Green a little bit before, and I'm not the only one that talks about him like that. I don't think Jaylen Green is a winning basketball player. I don't think he plays very smart basketball. I think he plays like the modern young guy that kind of just goes out there and tries to run in transition, but as soon as you put him in a half-court set and he doesn't have the basketball, he has no idea what he's doing, and that's frustrating because he's extremely talented, and we're giving him time. He's young. I'm not saying that he's a wash or anything. I mean, we can just take a look at his stats alone. I mean, he's put up 17 points, 22 points, 18 points in the NBA. That's awesome. Now, the efficiency hasn't been great ever, but like, you're still putting up these numbers and you're still capable of putting the ball in the hoop at the NBA level. I'm not questioning his talents at all. And this is his first time really having like vets on the team and stuff too, where there's starting to be a system being established. They're starting to use Şengün as the hub a little bit more, and then they're running it through Fred sometimes. You got guys like Dylan Brooks on the team, right, to try and probably bring some stability to the locker room. But there's a long way to go still, and I was kind of hoping we'd see a little bit more by then, but I still just feel like Jaylen Green is kind of all over the place. So we can look at his numbers more specifically, right? In the 18 points a game, you would think I'd be like, oh, he dropped 4 points per game, right? And like the assists went down as well and everything, and like the turnovers are still high, but like I expected the points to go down. I was hoping the turnovers would go down a little bit more because I figured he wouldn't have as many ball handling responsibilities with Fred VanVleet on the team, so that's a little bit concerning still and telling me he's still not really picking up some things. But like the efficiency has actually gone backwards again, which is scary that like with the more good players we put around you, somehow you're getting worse in terms of efficiency. That just shouldn't happen. So that's kind of just a red flag to me, right? And the assists go down as well. That's kind of just like, like, and obviously he doesn't have the ball as much. That can contribute to it too, but like, I don't know, man. I don't like it. We can take a look at his most recent games, like we've been doing for some of these other guys, right? And like this has been a hot streak for Green, right? You've seen ability of him being able to really create shots, right? Like that's a lot of what these young guys can do. They can go get their own shot and everything. And when they hit, they're hitting, right? They're super talented. That's what they do. If they get chances to get out in transition, you're playing good defense, he can go put up a lot of points really quickly. even in some of these games, though, you would kind of think his field goal percentage would be a little bit higher. Like, he's still not like hitting at like a huge clip. And again, you're seeing some of the same things you saw with Jordan Poole, right? And he's young, so we give him time, right? But like, you see these little stretches of like 23, 31, 22, right? Or like, I don't necessarily even see another one. Here's another one here, like 34, 25, goes down a little bit back up to 26. But then there's just like streaks of like nothing going on. And like, you want to start to see some consistency forming before you start feeling a little bit better about his game. You can take a look at the lineup numbers. The lineup that he's in the most is a positive, which is good. I presume this is the starting five. That's starting five. The lineup he plays the second most amount of time with is when they take Şengün, moving him over to the 4. Or no, he's still playing center here. They got Jalen Smith. It's when they bring Jayshawn Tate in. So that would mean he's still playing the same position. So that's interesting that as soon as you take out one guy like a Dylan Brooks, that it drops considerably like that. It's not nearly as much minutes played, though. So I don't know, but there's not a ton of lineups where he's that positive in. So if we go to his on-off numbers here, what are we going to see? Yeah, when he's on the court, minus 1.8. When he's off the court, plus 7. Yeah, no, that's a considerable thing right there. You got a guy scoring 17, 18 points a game, but you're worse with him? Nah, man. Can't be having that. And I can already tell you what his shooting chart's going to look like. It's another Jordan Poole thing, man. All over the place, right? Like, that's good that we're getting a high amount of shots at the rim and like from 3. That's cool. We're not really hitting like a high clip of them, at least, but there's a lot of shots scattered about here too, which means you're just kind of out there running around trying to get a shot. When you touch the ball, like, it's not hot potato pass the ball, it's hot potato shoot the ball. So that's my thing. I just don't really like watching Jaylen Green play. It's fun to watch him throw down these dunks and everything. And honestly, I feel the same about Cam Whitmore right now. And sorry, you guys, he's very talented. He's scoring a lot of points. But that dude literally has zero court vision. And we'll give him time. He's young, right? We're giving these guys young. I'm not saying their careers are over or anything, but it's a little bit annoying to watch. All right, y'all. Last guy we're going to talk about is Mikal Bridges. And so I'm going to clarify this one a little bit. Mikal Bridges isn't playing bad basketball, maybe like some of the other guys are, right? I just thought Mikal Bridges was going to be like a definite like all-star player this year. I thought we were going to see a jump. Like I thought a similar jump to what Tyrese Halliburton did last year was going to happen with Mikal Bridges, right? Like, he's finally got a full off season to where he's with his new team and everything. He's the go-to guy. I didn't think Cam Thomas was going to be scoring this much and this effective at it, but whatever. But I just kind of figured there'd be a more considerable jump. So a lot of the stats are up this year, almost like all of them. The turnovers have almost doubled, which is a little bit concerning, but that could just be the Nets not really knowing what they're doing out there. It's been really wonky to watch them play offense this year. And some of it's just them giving the ball to Cam and telling him to move out of the way. But like, the points are up, the rebounds are up, the assists are up, but like the efficiency's dropped a little bit. And so you're kind of like, okay, that kind of sucks. Again, you're not playing with Cam Johnson at the beginning of the year. Claxton's been out at points. Cam Thomas has been out. Spencer Dinwiddie's been playing weird. So like, maybe there just hasn't been a chance for him to get comfortable and everything, but you kind of thought that like maybe he would take over a little bit more. Like, he's only taking about one more shot a game than he did last year. And I guess last year, do we have just like his Brooklyn numbers last year? We don't. Okay, so that's taken into effect the Phoenix numbers as well. Okay, so that's not as good of a statistic to look at. It's good to notice when things aren't a good statistic or anything, right? But yeah, like, the defense is still great for Mikal, and like, he's still hitting a high clip of his mid-range shots and everything. I want to see the Nets figure out how to make him even more of a focal point, right? Because Cam Thomas is cool and everything like that. A guy like Mikal Bridges has talent to be a lot better than that. He's actually been on a tear recently, though, hasn't he? 42 points, 26 points, 26 points, 21, 26, 36. You guys can read. He's been hot recently, so maybe we're finding our stride a little bit now if we're Mikal Bridges. And in all fairness, they've had more of the team around him now, right? Like, Claxton's been back, Cam Johnson's been back, Ben Simmons came back last night at the time of recording this. Like, that's going to help just set him up for more things, right? Like, he doesn't have to work for shots because Ben Simmons is going to set him up for good shots. I'm still rooting for Ben Simmons, man. Hopefully Spencer Dinwiddie's like trying to prove everybody wrong at this point now that everybody's clowned him. But maybe that's helping or something, right? Just having more of the team around him, a little bit more consistency, that could go a long way, right? We could take a look at his lineup numbers as well. The lineup he's in the most, this looks like the starting lineup here. Yep, plus 6.4. As soon as you bring Cam Thomas into the game, though, with him, it drops to this negative 27. And It's a pretty considerable drop off. He plays a ton of minutes with the starters. I actually kind of figured that'd be more widespread because they have a pretty balanced talent pool on this team to pick from. So I don't know. I just figured that that'd be a little more balanced. But as soon as you bring Cam Thomas into play with him, it drops. And now this lineup, no Cam Thomas again, but this one it works with him. And what's the difference here? Ben Simmons is in. Okay, so Ben Simmons is what makes Cam Thomas and McCall Bridges work, which makes a lot of sense. They can go get their shots because he's the one facilitating, right? Makes a ton of sense. We look at the on-off numbers. I bet you it's going to be a better thing. No. On the court, minus 1.7. Off the court, plus 0.3. Very interesting. It's not a huge sample of him being off the court and everything, but that is interesting. And they just also haven't been a very good team this year, and they're only starting to get their players back. So I'm not going to look into that too much. It's not like a huge difference. So not going to worry about that too much. All right, so we're looking at this chart here. We're going to look at this one a little bit differently than like Poole and guys like Jaylen Green. It's not quite as scattered. The mid-range shots he's taken probably still a bit too far out where you'd like him, but at least they're a little more compact, right? Like he's not trying to take those ones just inside the arc. He's taking a step back and turning those into three-pointers. He's converting them at a decent clip, but it still hasn't been great this year. But yeah, not doing great at the rim either. That's unfortunate, but he is hitting his mid-range shots. He's one of those guys that is just like a pretty efficient mid-range scorer, and so you probably let it go that he's taking those shots. Kind of like the Devin Bookers, Durant's, Beals, Three Suns guys, but they're truly like three of the best mid-range guys in the NBA. So you'd like to see him tighten it up just a little bit, and hopefully with some better guys on the team, maybe those 3-point percentages start to come up because people aren't keying in on him as much. But yeah, I just want to emphasize again, McCall Bridges, good NBA player and everything. Kind of thought he'd take a bigger step this year, like maybe get an all-star. And not to say that that can't still happen like in another year or something like that. I'm just talking about this year. I was a little bit disappointed. I thought him and Jordan Poole were going to be guys that really jumped up this year. Didn't quite happen. Hopefully they all improve, but, whatever. You guys let me know if I'm wrong, though, or any people that you were disappointed in or something like that, expectations haven't been met for you in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe because YouTube keeps telling me I don't say that enough, and apparently that matters a lot. It matters to me. So, but, yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts and everything, and we'll talk to y'all later.